Welcome to Gold Derby. I'm senior editor Denton Davidson, and with me now is Charlie Mackesy, the illustrator, writer, co-director, and creative mind behind The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse, which is now streaming on Apple TV+. Charlie, the film's been shortlisted for Oscar consideration in the Best Animated Short category. So I just wanted to start off asking, how did that feel to be told you're among that prestigious group of animated films?
Well, it's a strange combination of feeling shocked, grateful. You know, those two things, kind of moved and grateful and surprised, I think. I mean, you're in the room. This room is where I started the book, and you're seeing the more presentable side of it, but it's still a mess of drawings. And yeah, so to hear that from you, if I could have played this video to me 3 years ago in a room which is basically still the mess it was in, I would have been, overwhelmed, because I never dreamt we'd make a book, let alone a film. So yeah, Denton, it's an honor and a shock,
It's fascinating to see that behind the scenes look in the room. When you created this, who do you relate to the most? The boy, the mole, the fox, or the horse?
That's a good question. I think on different days I relate to each one more than the others, depending on what's happening in my life or how I feel about myself or existence. Yeah, usually I'm mole-like. I think I have already been in the fridge just before I turned on the Zoom to get some kind of comfort for. I always get nervous before going Zoom. So I am definitely the mole who medicates himself with snacks. Yeah, but I have a lot of questions still. So the boy still is very present in me. Yeah, it just depends. Yeah. Who do you relate to? Do you relate to any of them?
I mean, I would have to say recently it's been the mole, because I feel like I'm constantly for cake. But hopefully I'm with you. I think, that's sort of what you're going for, correct? In this film, is we're all a little bit of all of these characters, and
right.
They could all really become one person. What was the message that you were trying to convey when you began the sketches of all of this?
I think for me, having always felt slightly alien to the human race, and I always felt like I was a bit strange. And my discovery is that we have so much more in common than we think, and so much of us is both beautiful and shareable. And the more you discover about yourself and how, I guess it was just a journey of acceptance and love.
Yeah.
And if you accept yourself, you can accept others. And if you are accepted, you can learn to accept yourself. It's all that kind of. And shame was always a big one. And I think, the boy's discovery that he's known and yet loved, that terrifying question he asked at the end. So all about me and you still love me. That's that kind of really. So I think the journey was one of, I was making myself amongst my friends, really. So I was doing these drawings and sending them to them, saying, this is what do you think about this? Do you feel, do you really feel like you're enough? And the answer was always no, not really. So I did drawings all around those issues. I think that we all, are present in us, and the journey we make towards feeling better about those things. So it was. I never thought, when I was doing them, that we'd make a book. And it took a year and a half before I kind of, and there were. If you see this room. There are drawings there, but they're also under these coats. I've hidden them because I'm going away actually to LA, but there are literally boxes and boxes. This has got probably, I don't know, thousands of drawings. This room it's like a crazy room of process. And I think I was processing my own feelings. Do you feel less alone? Do you feel, that it's courageous to show weakness? because these are the things I discovered and wanted to share with the world, really, or at least with my friends. I didn't think the world would ever read them, but
But the book was so wildly successful. I mean, it really
right,
took off like no one expected. So
right,
when you were approached to turn it into a film, did you
yeah.
feel like a pressure to live up to that? Or were you just like, sure, let's go for it?
It's a really good question. I guess the pressure was not there because I'd never made a film before and I didn't know how it would be, but I did put pressure on myself, and I wanted in a way to be involved as possible to try to keep the essence of the book in the film and to keep the messages as close to the film as we could. So I, in my own kind of mad way, wanted to inculcate into the whole journey the things that we've been talking about for a few years and the book was concerned with. So I suppose that was the pressure, was to try to keep us close to how people would write to me and tell me how the book made them feel. And I got, crazy numbers of emails. And I kind of felt, well, if we make a film, we should try to not copy the book, but at least go for the spirit of the book.
Yeah.
And to try to, if time is linear, that you begin watching the film in one place and when it's over, you feel differently in a good way, hopefully, to about yourself or about the world or your friends, or you're more hopeful about things. So that was my real hope for the book, and equally hope for the film.
What did you enjoy the most about the filmmaking process and doing that for the first time and seeing your drawings become something else?
I'd always kind of wondered what they'd look like if they moved.
Yeah.
And would do really bad animations on my phone with I can't remember what it's called now, something flip. Anyway, you could do it with your finger, and I used to make these 10-second animations, try to see how the mole would move, and boy. But that was like the summary of I never dreamt that anybody would be that interested in making the film. And so to see after a few months' work the characters develop and not be radically different from the book, but then to see them come to life, that was a huge thing. I remember when I first saw the boy moving, and also to see his face clearly when we developed his face. I just ran around the garden screaming because I felt that we still had kept him, that we hadn't lost him in the translation. I was worried it'd be lost in translation, if you like. And then obviously it went from that to then having the actors and the voices, and that was a scary thing because I remember thinking, are they going to sound right?
Yeah.
And I that was a big thing. And I remember hearing the voices with the animated characters, and just again, that was another real elation that that they felt and sounded the same as they kind of felt like they would sound in the book. So, Denton, there were lots of kind of eureka moments, and in amongst the real struggle, because it was a really tough journey for us to achieve. I think, moving images that felt connected to the original work, and Peter Bainton, the co-director, everyone seemed to be so committed to it emotionally beyond the work itself, and that was a real privilege. And I think we all wanted to try to achieve the same thing. So we had big moments together. It wasn't just like me. I think we were all on this journey together, and that was a great thing for me, because having made the book in relative isolation, one of the great things about making the film was that I was in this wonderful group of gifted, very gracious people who, essentially allowed me in, because I'm not an animator. I'm not this is just me with my instincts without any technical knowledge whatsoever. So I think they were truly wonderful in how they embraced me and listened to me and educated me on the process of filmmaking, which I was very ignorant about.
I was curious about that. Like, did you feel like you had to give up some creative control because these are your characters, or did you enjoyed that? You enjoyed hearing other people's perspectives, or what was the most challenging part of all of this?
Firstly, I loved the process of democracy. I loved being wrong. I know that sounds odd, but there's a real pleasure in me realizing that I'm wrong, and I enjoyed. There was never really any arguing. We just would posit our views in different ways and about things. And I loved the fact that all these heads were working together to achieve the same thing, but coming from very, very different places. So I enjoyed that. And the pressure was off me in isolation to do the right thing. It was endless Zoom calls, discussion, like 4 hours a day. In 2 years. So I mean, sorry, what was your other question? You asked me there was a second part to your question.
Just what the challenge was. So,
well, I think the challenges were many, not least, I think, getting the ink to move and not lose the fluidity of the ink. And I use a very, like, I've got a drawing here, for instance. I just did it just now. It's going to give me but can you see these loose lines around?
Oh yeah.
How we wanted to try to keep those energy lines in the animation, if you like, and not just have the lines too sealed, too simple, and yet create something that everybody could work with, rather than just me. I mean, I do random drawings. That's fine if you're on your own, but when you come to animate that's extremely hard.
So, Charlie, congratulations on the film being shortlisted for the upcoming Oscars, and we certainly wish you the best of luck. And everyone watching this interview can watch The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse on Apple TV+. Charlie, thanks for joining.
Well, thank you.
The panel.
It's lovely to meet you.